Hello, welcome to Faster Masters Rowing Radio. In this episode, you'll discover why the blade pathway from crossover to the catch is so different between your left and your right hands.
Feel the grip of the oar handle, smooth yet firm in your hands. Taste the salt of your own sweat and the occasional splash of water. It's all part of the journey. Welcome to another episode of Faster Masters Rowing Radio. Each week, our host, Masters Rowing Coach Rebecca Caro, dives deep into the world of Masters Rowing. Whether you're on the water or in the gym, join us to become a faster master. Let's go rowing.
Well, hello, everybody. It's great to be back in the studio with you guys again. And today we're talking about the important issue of how to scull in a straight line. I'm Rebecca Caro, and today let's get straight into the topic. Everybody wants to be able to go straight, and everybody at some time or other finds that they are definitely not going straight. What are the things that generally cause you to have difficulties in this area? So I'll start with the beginner errors. These are things that you've probably overcome or experienced, but they're reasonably straightforward to sort out. So the first thing that beginners generally get wrong that causes their boat not to go straight are squaring late. If you are not fully squared before you put the blade in the water, so if you are turning the oar as it goes in the water, the chances of you getting a symmetrical catch with both blades going in at the same time, really low. The second thing is balance issues. It causes the same error. If your boat is not level, it's really hard then to work out where your handle height should be so that your oars can both go in the water at the same time, left and right together. And then the third thing, which is a compound of the two earlier things, is missing water at the catch. If you are rolling forwards and then bouncing back, or your blades are so high above the water that they miss water, or you're squaring so late that your slide has started to move back before the blades go in the water, again, compounded with the balance issues and squaring late, if one blade goes into the water before the other, you will generally find that your boat doesn't go straight. So those three things are not easy to fix, but they are the most obvious reasons why your single scull may not be going in a straight line. Now let's move through to the main part of the rowing stroke and different elements of it where your boat may not be going straight and the things you can do to counteract that. Because there are a lot of different reasons why a boat may not go in a straight line, but let's just work through some of the ones that you can then test for yourself. Firstly, to know if your single's going in a straight line, the easiest thing to do is to look past the back of the boat, past the stern, and then up to your horizon. Find a point on the skyline that you can identify with. It might be a tree or a house or a telephone pole or a power cable, and line your stern up directly with that point. Then look at the wake, because from your stern you get a V wake going away from the back of the boat. And if your stern moves from that fixed point, either to the right or the left, you'll know you're not going straight. Similarly, if you just watch your wake, you will see if there are bends in the wake. So you don't have to turn around, is what I'm saying, in order to see if your boat's going straight. Turning around is a whole other episode, different reasons for doing that. So starting at the blade extraction, taking it out of the water, reasons why your technique here might be causing your boat not to go straight. Broadly, are the blades coming out of the water at the same time, and are your handles pressing down the same depth on both the left and the right? Because if you can tap down symmetrically with the same downward pressure and by the same height, the extraction will be symmetrical, and that will not be causing any problems with the steering. Self-evidently, if one blade drags, then it'll tend to affect the course of the boat. Or if one comes out before the other, you've then got sort of more pressure continuing on one side than the other. And again, that affects the balance. So you've managed to get the blades out symmetrically. The next part of the recovery is about the blade crossover. So from the extraction until your hands cross over as you're straightening your arms. Here, it's important that the boat is level, and most boats are rigged so the left oarlock, the left gate, is higher than the right. Now, in order to get to crossover with the boat still level, your handle heights have to reflect the difference in the oarlock height. And the way to do that is to have tightly nested hands through the crossover. There are a couple of different ways of doing it. This is a stacked hand where my left hand is directly above my right. And you can see where the gap, the circle of my hands is. You see that's where the handle would be. If you scull like that, you may need more than 1 centimeter left over right differential in order that the boat is level at that point, because your hand height difference with one hand above the other, if they are actually touching, is probably getting on for 4, maybe 5 centimeters. So you might need 1.5 centimeters or more on the gates in order that the boat is level there. The other way to do it, instead of having stacked hand, is to have a nested hand where your left hand is above and in front of your right, and your right hand is closely nested behind it, so that the knuckles of your right hand are on the fleshy bit here at the bottom of the palm of the left. And as you can see, because we've got one above the other, but in front of, the actual height differential between where the handles are is less, probably closer to 3 centimeters. And a 1 centimeter height differential on the oarlocks is sufficient that if you do brush your hands and go through that point accurately, the boat will be level. So, can you get to that point with the boat level? Because if the boat isn't level, that's going to set you up poorly for the catch. And so, although in itself, where you go through crossover and how your hands are positioned isn't going to cause your boat to go in a straight line, it is one of the prerequisites that sets you up for later on in the recovery. So the third part of that preparation is between the crossover and the blade catch, the placement of the blade into the water. If you've gone through crossover with your left hand above and in front of your right, you've got to get to the catch with your oars, the handles, symmetrical. So they need to be a similar arc from the oarlock, so that they are, you've got the tips of the blades are also at the same distance. Because if one is in front of the other, the tips of the blades will also be asymmetric. And that is one of the most obvious reasons why you're not sculling in a straight line, is because one has a greater arc of a circle to row through than the other. So from crossover to the catch, if your right hand is behind your left, because you've chosen the nested position of your handles, your right handle has to move a greater distance than your left. Now, this does not necessarily involve you changing your shoulders. It just means you need to learn to push that right handle away from you as you roll up the slide and square, so that it pushes through a probably 2 centimeters further distance. So when you get to the catch, you're perfectly symmetrical. You will need to work on this, but one way to do it is to start with your blades flat on the water and just roll through your recovery sequence and work out how far that right handle needs to move in order to be symmetrical with the left. Remember that at the catch and throughout the stroke, your left oar is rowing on a plane that pivots around the gate, and that plane is higher than the right oar's plane. So they're like two concentric and overlapping circles, but one is slightly higher than the other. So at the catch, your left hand should be higher than your right, but the distance that they are from you and the angle of the oars should be identical. They're just at a slightly different height. So that's a further refinement. Generally, I encourage people to push their right hand away faster after you come out of crossover to try and compensate for this. And one way that you might find it useful to practice this is if you can get out in a single scull with pontoon floats. These provide you with a level of stability and confidence that the boat isn't going to tip based on what you're doing while you're learning how to do different things with your handles. Now, you don't have to set the pontoons so they're actually touching the water. You can set them so that they're above the water and they only touch when you've made a small error in your handle height and your handle movements. So what you're trying to train here is really fine motor skills so that you make a very small and subtle adjustment to one or other handle in order that you get the blades out symmetrically, you get through the crossover in a skilled way to a precise position, and then you roll up to the catch and you get your handles symmetrical in terms of blade arc. And those are most of the things that you can do to help you scull in a straight line. It's extremely rare that someone doesn't scull in a straight line based on the amount of power that they put through the water. Generally speaking, once you put your blades in the water and you're pushing, most people are very, very symmetrical, unless obviously you're trying to work hard and pull harder on one side to go around a corner. That's a slightly different place. So worry less about what you're doing through the water and more about your timing of the catch placement, the boat trim, making sure that it's level, and the fact that both of your arms need to go out to the same handle height and the same, most of your arms need to go out to the same distance, but not the same handle height at the catch. And those are the things that require careful work. And if you can do it in a stable environment on your own, it's great, because then you know what's happening is due to you. You'll find in crew boats that it's harder to work on this because of the amplifying and muffling effect of your technique vis-a-vis the other people in the crew. So you don't know if what you're doing is affecting it positively or negatively. If you are going to go out and practice this, use your ears. Listen to the sound of the blades going into the water. Now, if you can't get your oars off the water on the recovery, you won't hear this because you'll just have the water sound of the blades dragging along the surface. So you do need to be able to tap down and get the oars above the water surface. Again, another good reason for using the pontoon floats, because you could also do it square blades, and that'll give you a very clear sound to listen to. Can I hear my right and left going in precisely together? So sculling in a straight line is not easy to learn, and it will take you time. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, but of course, the benefits, massive. Good luck and enjoy.
We are part of the Rowing Chat Podcast Network. Please tell your fellow rowers about the show. If you've learned just one helpful thing from today's episode, please consider supporting the show for as little as $1 per month by visiting fastermastersrowing.com/podcast.